captains of industry are gathering in Johannesburg for the next 2 days as part of the 8th annual Southern Africa-Europe CEO Dialogue. This event's objective is to stimulate investment and trade between Southern Africa and its trade partners in Europe. For more on what to expect, let's bring in former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel, who joins us now via our video link. And Mr. Manuel, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much indeed for making time. I wonder if we can just begin with the context in which this gathering is taking place. I mean, in the past couple of months, we've seen a significant, call it critical reflection on the effectiveness of multilateralism, given the kind of faults that COVID-19 has exposed. With that in mind, what are you hoping to achieve with this gathering?
Well, it's very important that we never lose faith in the view that the world is interconnected, and part of that interconnection is through investment and trade. It's a story of human history and world history, and I think we understand that it's still very, very important as a country. Trade accounts for so much of our gross domestic product, and so ensuring that we have solid trade relations across the African continent, but also with our trading partners across the world is fundamentally important. And I think that this conference, convened by the Ambrosetti Forum, is important in that regard, because they help to convene us as Southern Africans, but they also provide a channel of communication between Africa and Europe, and I think it's that we must cherish as an initiative.
Multiple heads of multinationals have been part of this conference in the past, but we also know that CEOs typically need some kind of, call it, governmental structure to be able to carry out whatever ambitions they have. Do you feel that's where it should be across all the countries that are involved in this particular event?
Look, I think that unfortunately governmental participation from the South African government is rather thin at this conference, but the Gauteng provincial government is definitely a part of the host, and I know that Premier Makura is one of the speakers scheduled for tomorrow. I think that part of what we need to get back to is a sense of Team South Africa, because we need to ensure that there are constant messages across our country, across the continent, very important in the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And these views of a team with the rest of the world, I think, will define the way in which we communicate. But Team South Africa also means that we've got to tie up the various parts. So you can't just look at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Competition and hope that it'll come from there. I think it's also the way in which the other parts fit together. You know, I want to mention an example. One of the big exports from South Africa is fruit generally. It's a competitive space. You know, over the next few weeks, our table grapes on the banks of the Orange River in the Northern Cape will ripen, and they ripen before those in other parts of the world, before Chile, before Australia, and we need to get them to the markets of Europe so that we become a reliable supplier of table grapes. It's a little example. You miss the window, there'll be others in the queue, they'll take your place, and you're gone. We were also the world's largest exporter of citrus. We lost that position just in this year. And so understanding the importance of well-functioning ports and the corridors, certainly between, in this case, the fruit-growing regions and the ports of Durban and Cape Town, become important for us. The ports need to function optimally, and there was a recent World Bank report that in fact suggests that our ports are at the bottom of the pile of about 170 countries. Yeah. It's rather unfortunate. We have to understand that it's not just the statements we make, it's about getting the basics right so that we do become a reliable partner to those whom we trade with.
Speaking about getting the basics right, I mean, you've already alluded to the African Continental Free Trade Area. I see among the participants for this leg of the conference is Wamkele Mene, who's the SG of this deal. Some of the challenges that have been raised about the AfCFTA is around the harmonization of legislation to ensure that we can actually roll out the plan as it's envisioned. How much of those conversations will feature in this conference?
Those conversations are fundamentally important, and I think it's unfortunate that we as Africans don't drill down and talk about these issues, frankly, amongst ourselves first. In fact, when we look at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which was eventually promulgated in 2018,
right.
We need to pause and reflect on the fact that the agreement on the African Economic Community was signed in Abuja in 1991, and it took all of that time to get to the point. Now that you've got 35 countries who've signed up to the ACFTA, we must ensure that we can discuss mutually beneficial trade. You see, it works because we as South Africa export to other countries on the continent, but by the same token, we must receive exports from them. And so it means that we've got to harmonize legislation and rules, and we must drop tariffs, and we must also protect our African identity. One of the things, Ayanda, that has happened in the past is, and I'm just using a fictitious example, a shirt is manufactured in China, it's dropped into, say, Malawi, where they sew on a label that says Malawi, and then an attempt is made to try and export that as a Malawian product, either across the African continent or into the American Growth and Opportunities Act, the AGOA. And we've been caught out as Africans because people look at the transaction not as a value, not at the value of job creation in the longer term. And these are the issues for which you require clear, articulate government that looks for opportunities for African people on an ongoing basis. And hopefully that's the spirit that will dominate the ACFTA, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that from the Director General tomorrow.
Sure. Shall we speak about investor confidence in a country like ours, given the year we've had, dare I say? July will obviously have to feature one way or the other. A lot of the conversation now when you speak about investment is around whether or not the country will be able to convincingly tell investors that A, we have a handle of the situation, and B, it won't happen again. From your vantage point, what kind of appetite do you reckon exists when it comes to investing in South Africa, given the events of July?
Look, it's very important that we understand that these investments happen because companies are persuaded. Companies are persuaded sometimes because of bilateral relations between their government and ours. And this is an ongoing issue, and you know, there's a big prospective investment. I think it's about to be inked, and it relates to Heineken, the beer company, and its acquisition of a large fast-moving consumer goods entity operating out of the Western Cape called Distel. Now that brings in mega billions very quickly, and I think it's a signal of the fact that you can still pull these off. But we need to do more than just have the odd flash in the pan. I think that we need to have a culture of investment, and we need to encourage investment in the way in which we make legislation, we pass regulations, and we signal through that our door is open to attract investments, because one of the things that we have as a country is a low savings rate. So what foreign direct investment actually does is to bring in the savings from elsewhere in the world. The interesting thing about this conference, Ayanda, is that one of the hallmarks of the Italian economy is small and medium businesses. It's been their strength in a range of sectors, but certainly in equipment manufacturing, metals fabrication, and of course clothing, textiles, and design. The Italians have been and food, very strong. And part of the exchange that will happen in Johannesburg this week is about putting opportunities from Italy together with hopefully open arms, inviting these into South Africa, and that is how we will build these relations and strengthen them into the future. The fact that this is the 8th edition of this conference says that positive things have happened in the past. I know that the conveners of this conference, Ambrossetti, want to establish a permanent base in South Africa, and I think that augurs incredibly well for the relations going forward, because they can act as a matchmaker, and we need that with friends across the world.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, let's see what the 8th edition has in store for us. Thanks very much indeed for giving us a sense of what's happened, but more importantly, what needs to happen in the future for us to land up at least where we think the country should be. Trevor Manuel is the former finance minister, also an ordinary citizen in South Africa who cares dearly about these issues. Once again, Trevor Manuel, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Ayanda, and the viewers of Newzroom Afrika.
Thank you very much.